April 23, 1928. A wonderful baby girl named Edith was born into a large family. Calvin Coolidge was President of the United States. America was still enjoying the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties, but just over a year later, the country would be plunged into the Great Depression. Edith would grow up during some of the hardest years America had ever known, and hardship entered her life at an incredibly young age. When Edith was still a little girl, her mother died during childbirth. Her mother had locked herself inside the bathroom. Because Edith was the smallest of the children, she was the one who had to climb through the window. That little girl had to climb over her own mother's body to reach the door and unlock it for the others. It's difficult to imagine what something like that does to a child. But somehow, despite the tragedy and hardships she experienced, Edith grew into a strong, caring, and wonderful woman. During the World War II era, she cared for others as a nurse. She also contributed to the war effort, doing dangerous work, pouring hot TNT into shells used for bombs. She belonged to a generation of women who stepped forward when their country needed them. Eventually, the war ended and life began moving forward again. Edith married and had 2 wonderful children of her own. The years passed, her children grew up, and eventually they had children of their own. I was one of those grandchildren. But to me, Edith was much more than my grandmother. She raised me for much of my childhood and again during my teenage years. In every way that truly mattered, I considered her my mother. She believed in me, even during the times when I may not have believed in myself. She used to tell me, "You're going to graduate if it kills you." And I did. After graduating, I joined the United States Army. When the time came for my boot camp graduation in Oklahoma, there was never any question in her mind about whether she would be there. She told me she would go even if she had to walk to Oklahoma. That was my grandmother. Every major milestone of my life, she was there. She was there when my only child was born. She watched me grow from the little boy she helped raise into a man with a family of my own. But some of the greatest things Edith gave me weren't things you could hold in your hands. She taught me the old ways of cooking, lessons that I still use today. Every time I prepare food the way she taught me, a little piece of her is still there. But most importantly, she taught me not to judge people. My grandmother never judged me in any way, shape, or form. She simply loved me. Nearly a century after that little girl was born on April 23, 1928, I sat down with a pencil and tried to put onto paper the woman I remembered. But this portrait isn't really about graphite. It isn't about shading, technique, or whether every line is perfect. The woman who survived unimaginable hardship. The woman who worked, raised a family, and cared for others. The woman who raised me. The woman who pushed me to graduate. The woman who would have walked to Oklahoma to see me graduate from boot camp. The woman who was there when my child was born. The woman who taught me how to cook. The woman who taught me not to judge. The woman who loved me unconditionally. I loved my grandmother with everything that I am. And if there is one thing I hope people understand when they look at this portrait, it is simply this: what a wonderful woman. Her name was Edith.